Chris Rock was on stage last night, and yeah, he kind of talked about it. Hi, I'm Johnny Mac with a bonus episode for Thursday, March 31st. There was a regular episode in the feed earlier this morning. Don't miss out on that. The Hollywood Reporter had somebody at Chris Rock's show in Boston. That person said Chris Rock looked like an angel. When Chris Rock walked out on the bare bones black box stage at Boston's Wilbur Theater, kicking off his first tour in 5 years, he appeared as a beacon of light. Dressed head to toe in white sneakers, white pants, white button-down shirt. The fabrics look like linen, breathable, calming, beatific. What are we doing here? As soon as Chris Rock stepped out, 1,000 people scrambled to their feet, whooping, clapping, hollering. The standing ovation lasted a little more than 2 minutes. Chris Rock could barely get a word in edgewise. He said, "You got me all misty and stuff." All right, so you're waiting for it. Chris Rock, with an S-eating grin, said, "How was your weekend?" I don't have a bunch of stuff to talk about what happened, so if you came to hear that, I have a whole show I wrote before this weekend, and I'm still kind of processing what happened. So at some point, I'll talk about that stuff, and it'll be serious, and it'll be funny. It took a couple minutes for the crowd to settle back in. An audience member yelled out, "F. Will Smith." Rock ignored the comment and began his hour-long set and said, "I'm going to tell some jokes. It's nice to just be out." Before the 7:30 p.m. show, there was a media frenzy outside, cameras there, some protesters of sorts. We'll talk about that. One onlooker said, "This is insane." The Hollywood Reporter writes, "There's nothing particularly innovative about Chris Rock's new show. But you don't necessarily need to break new ground to be funny. Chris Rock's strengths are not in his ideas, which we've generally heard before in the ether, but his taut punchlines and legendary screeching preacher-like delivery. He touches on the usual politics, pop culture, privilege, bouncing from topic to topic before he really gets going with any one theme. There's no spectacular crescendo that elegantly knits together all his loose threads. The more ideas Rock introduces, the more his amusing peeves and judgments entangled and afraid not. Every time Rock made a grand cutting statement about the dark truths of American society, he would undercut himself by zipping along to the next subject instead of really digging deeply into his own opinion. He blasts through comments on COVID, phony corporate anti-racism efforts, nature versus nurture, his disgust with the January 6th riots, impregnating Billie Eilish, the problem with Republicans and Democrats not being able to relate to his rich offspring, Meghan Markle's alleged hypocrisy, the meteoric rise of Lil Nas X, Elon Musk's semen volume, and the overly welcoming nature of the Kardashian family. The joke there, they love black people more than black people. Their daddy freed OJ. That's a great joke. More jokes per the Hollywood Reporter. The problem with COVID is that it didn't kill enough A-listers. And the Ukraine is better off than us. At one point, he had to momentarily pause the show because of an audience misbehavior. Talk about that in a second. And he lost some of his flow. The Hollywood Reporter says, "I imagine this zigzagging is a natural consequence of this being his very first show on tour. No doubt his rhythms will tighten in time." But he quickly regained his composure, wrapping up an extended run about his absurd wealth and his daughter's world of privilege. By then, Rock was surely glad to have the first show since the weekend's confrontation out of the way. As for that audience thing, Boston police received multiple calls from people at the theater beginning at 8:36. Officers arrested one person. No further details available on that. Prior to the show, local religious leaders gathered in front of the Wilbur Theater to make a statement about, quote, "the incident regarding our brothers," and, quote, "send a message that violence is not the way to resolve conflict." Kevin C. Pearson is the founder of the New Democracy Coalition. He said, "This is a teachable moment, so we end the cycle of violence that is underreported in the black community." Wilbur Theater employees didn't seem so happy with all the kerfluffle. One Wilbur employee said, "We have to get ready for a show. We're trying to work now." Jesse Citaro said he paid $225 for his ticket. He wasn't bothered by all the circus around the theater. He said, "Why wouldn't they be here? It's a historic night." Others in the crowd admitted to shelling out $800 to $1,200 for admission. What are you doing? Comedian Rick Ingram, who was Rock's opening act, teased people in the balcony and said, "Never thought you'd pay $1,000 for the worst seats in the house." Chris Rock is great and everything, and believe me, I've seen him live. He's great. But $1,200? Now, from the New York Times, the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences said Wednesday that they asked Will Smith to leave, and he refused to go. The Academy said things unfolded in a way we could not have anticipated. While we would like to clarify that Mr. Smith was asked to leave the ceremony and refused, we also recognize we could have handled the situation differently. So I was thinking about that. Now, ideally, Will Smith is like, "Oh, I lost my cool. I should excuse myself." And I don't know what you do there. If you ask him to leave and he doesn't want to leave, what do? You can't have security goons drag Will Smith out because I'll remind you, this is on live TV. So even if you have some sort of emergency prepackaged thing that you can throw to in case of something, and as a producer, I would have such a thing, but my thing would probably be, I don't know, 4 or 5 minutes long. It wouldn't be 15 minutes long. So how do you cover that you're dragging Will Smith out? Plus, it's the 21st century. We have cell phones and stuff now. So somebody would have whipped out a phone and you'd have all this video of security guards dragging Will Smith out of the Oscars. I'm not sure that's great either. Hey, remember the other day I read you the story about Diddy saying everything was cool between Chris and Will, and I observed that the only person that was saying that was Diddy? Somebody tweeted at Tony Rock. Tony Rock is Chris's brother. At Tony Rock. So Diddy was lying when he said Chris and Will made up that night and are good now? Tony Rock tweeted back, yep. Tony told his Twitter followers that he's waiting for Smith to speak directly to his brother and family after a fan pointed out Smith's relationship with the comedian over the years. People has the story that Chris Rock recently expressed that he's let people walk all over him since his childhood. He was on the Fly on the Wall podcast with Dana Carvey and David Spade. On the podcast, Chris Rock recounted about being bullied ridiculously throughout his childhood. Half of the bullying was because I was just a little guy. Then I got bused to school, and the bullying was because I was a little guy and I was black. I was getting double bullied. I went home. I put a brick in a book bag. This is like a legendary story in my neighborhood. I swung that crap and I smacked the guy in the face with this brick and stomped on him Joe Pesci style to the point where we thought he might die. Long story short, from that day on, as my shrink puts it to me, I've been scared to be angry ever since. The guy you saw bending over backwards to be nice was because I'm so scared of my anger. I'm not scared of letting people know how I feel about certain things. Now I can say, hey, I don't like what you said to me without losing my head, without hitting somebody on the head with a brick. In Los Angeles, the Laugh Factory has changed its marquee to support Chris Rock. It says, Laugh Factory supports First Amendment rights for all comedians. The comedy community loves and supports you, Chris. Wanda Sykes was on with Ellen. Wanda said by the time she got backstage to watch Rock hand out the Oscar, she saw Smith leaving the stage. Then she heard Will Smith yell profanities from his seat. She thought, is this really happening? I just felt so awful for my friend Chris. It was sickening. It was absolutely, I felt physically ill, and I'm still a little traumatized by it. For them to let him stay in the room and enjoy the rest of the show and accept his award, I was like, how gross is this? This is just the wrong message. She said she saw Chris Rock at the after party, and I hope he doesn't mind me saying this, but as soon as I walked up to him, the first thing Chris Rock said was, I'm so sorry, it was supposed to be your night. You and Amy and Regina, y'all were doing such a great job. I'm so sorry that this is going to be about this. She also shared the joke she would have made had Will Smith been escorted out of the Oscars. That joke would have been, unfortunately, Will couldn't be here tonight. And the voice of reason, O.J. Simpson, has weighed in on all this. O.J. in a video said, it was unfortunate. I think Will Smith was wrong. Look, I understand the feeling. In my life, I've been through a lot of crap. I was raising 2 young kids, and every comedian in the country had an O.J. routine. And don't think I wouldn't want to slap a couple of those guys. But you gotta accept it. It's humor. I didn't even think it was that egregious. I thought it was a semi-unfunny joke, but I don't know. I don't get it. Thank you, OJ. All right, that's a bonus episode, normal episode in the morning. Follow the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Overcast, wherever you get your shows. If you'd like the show ad-free and early, become a premium subscriber on Apple Podcasts, $4.99 a month. See you tomorrow.